Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Poole, and I have the honor of being your worship associate today. I use she, her pronouns. Please take a moment to put your mind and your cell phone in worship mode. We welcome everyone here and online to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke, with a special welcome to those who are joining us for the first time, and we hope that you will stay and share coffee hour with us in the fellowship hall after the service. And I would like to say a special welcome back to Rev Kirk and Robin after their world travels. Okay, let's take a second right now to stand up and turn around and wave to the people who are online. And to the people online, if you would like to share your joys and concerns during the Lifelines portion of the service, please put those in the chat within the next 15 minutes. We would also like to do our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our church resides on traditional lands of the Tutelo and Monacan nations and was later farmed and developed through slave labor. We recognize and we respect the ongoing connection to this land by generations of the indigenous and other people of color. May our gratitude and fellowship here echo and honor that rich history. We're now going to say our words of welcome, which are projected. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness or overflowing with joy, you need to know yourself, are eager to engage with others. All who welcome all are welcome here. And our covenant, we commit to supporting each other with respect and direct communication as we work in community to explore spiritual growth and to be a force for good in the world.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to start with the hymn, We Shall Overcome, which is on page 169 in your hymnals. It'll also be on the screen. If you'd like and you're willing, please stand and sing with us.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Jen Raffensperger. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am honored to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke. Glad to see you all on this somewhat gray morning. I'm glad that you are here, everyone joining us in person and online. Our opening words this morning they're not from, it's not an excerpt. It is the entire short poem, A Small Needful Fact by Ross Gay. A small needful fact is that Eric Garner worked for some time for the Parks and Rec Horticultural Department, which means, perhaps, that with his very large hands, perhaps in all likelihood, he gently put into the earth some plants which, most likely, some of them, in all likelihood, continue to grow, continue to do what such plants do, like house and feed small and necessary creatures, like being pleasant to touch and smell, like converting sunlight into food, like making it easier for us to breathe. This time I will invite Teresa to light our chalice. We join at this time in our ritual morning worship service with Unitarian Universalist churches and congregations across the nation and the world in lighting the flame of our faith, which we kindle within our hearts at all times and when we are together for important purposes such as this.
Some of you already know what time it is. So before I even introduce myself, I'm going to invite up those who are young at heart, or just want to get close. I am Jessie McEwen. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the Director of Lifespan Faith Development here at the UU Church of Roanoke. And I have a story for you guys. Now, I have a question, and be honest here. Who likes to sleep in? Yeah. Who likes naps? Also me. Let me tell you, there's nothing better than a Sunday afternoon nap on a day like today. I'm hearing a lot of, that's, I think, might be something that a lot of people can agree on, is the ministry of napping. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about a guy who took a nap. His name was Rip Van Winkle, and he did like to sleep, I'll be honest. He would fall asleep on the porch, and his wife would come out and say, "Why are you sleeping on the porch? Go to bed." And then he'd get up and go to bed. He also disagreed with his wife about what productivity was. Now, success, productivity are all measured in different ways, right? And she had a list that she wanted him to do. And he would start the list, like one day it was fix the roof. So he had let his neighbor borrow the ladder. So he went over to the neighbor's house. "Can I get the ladder back?" And his neighbor said, "You know what? It's out in the barn. And I've been meaning to fix something in the barn. So let me go get that ladder out of the barn, and I'll fix that thing while you finish painting my fence." So he finished painting the fence, but then his neighbor came back and said, "You know what? I totally forgot that I let the guy down the road borrow the ladder." So then he went down the road, and of course it went on and on and on until he finally got his ladder back at the end of the day, but he hadn't even done anything on the list. Now, when he lived in the United States, it was a long, long time ago, before the United States was the United States. He lived in a Dutch colony in New York, exactly. And back then, different people owned different parts of the United States. But does anybody know who kind of took over and owned the United States after that? What country we were? It was like a whole thing. Has anybody studied this? Give it to me. England, yes. But back when Rip Van Winkle was around, he was in a Dutch colony. So one day, he got the list. So he did what we might do and decided, you know what, I'm just going to go and take a break, not worry about the list quite yet, and I'm just going to go on a hike. So he and his dog, named Wolf, went on a hike. And they hiked and hiked and hiked in the Catskill Mountains until he saw this party happening. Now, he didn't know who was throwing this party, and he's seen all these people walk past him. Where are they going? They're going to this party. And they said, here, carry this food, carry these drinks, and once you get there, you can party with us. Would you do it? Oh, well, you guys are probably a little smarter than Rip Van Winkle or me, because I would totally do it. Like, look, it's deviled eggs. You hand me a tray of deviled eggs and say I can go to the party, I'm going. So he went to the party, and he had such a good time. And he drank this wonderful drink that seemed amazing. Then he started to get a little sleepy. But it's Rip Van Winkle, so he sleeps all the time. So he was like, you know what? I'm just going to go find a tree, go to sleep under this tree, and wake up in the morning. Wolf, I'm going to go sleep under this tree. So he went to sleep. And then the next morning, he woke up. And the world seemed a little weird. There were noises that he wasn't used to. There was the path that he took to get to that party was gone. The tree was suddenly in spring. Now, he went up there in the autumn. And he was like, well, how long did I sleep? Couldn't have been that long. So he got up and went down to the creek to wash his face and saw his reflection in the creek. And he had a great big old white beard. And he's sitting there, what? Now, I was only 30 when I went up the mountain. Where'd this beard come from? And he pulled at it, and it didn't come off. And this has got to be a trick. Somebody's pulling a trick on me. So then he went back down into town. Now, everybody in town didn't know who he was. Before he went up the mountain, everybody knew who Rip Van Winkle was because he was that guy who let everybody borrow his ladder and then ended up at their house again and again. Nobody knew who he was. They didn't even know who the Van Winkles were. So he went to where his house used to be, and it was gone. And he started to look around, and he saw the strangest thing. In front of a lot of the buildings, in front of a lot of the houses, he saw what we know as the American flag. He didn't know what that flag was. When he went up there, they had the Dutch flag. So he started asking people, does anybody know what happened? And they said, have you been sleeping for 100 years? There was a huge revolution. Now, can anybody tell me what the American Revolution was about? Does anybody know? Yeah, hit me with it. Independence from Britain. What was happening? Does anybody know what was happening? And you guys can answer too. It's not just for these folks. Let me hear it. Taxed. There was tax without representation. So what was happening was nobody was there speaking for the American colonies. But Rip slept through all of this. How would you feel if you slept for 100 years and suddenly the world was different? You were living in a different country, a different village. Nobody that you knew. He was probably 130, yeah. Hey, it's Rip's story to tell. I don't know. It might have been 20 minutes, but for us, it's 100 years, right? I love your critical thinking, guys. All of us just ate this story up when we were your ages. How would you feel, though, if suddenly everything changed and you had slept through it? Has that ever happened? I'll tell you what, sometimes if I take a nap in the winter at 2 o'clock p.m. and I wake up when it's getting dark, it feels like I've slept for 100 years. What are some things that you don't want to sleep through? Math test. Birthday, absolutely. I don't want to sleep through my birthday. Christmas. Holidays. What about big changes? I don't want to sleep through my brother's wedding. I didn't want to sleep through my grandma's funeral. Big changes sometimes happen, and we want to notice them, don't we? And you can take a nap after school. After that math test, you're allowed to take a nap. My permission. We're going to head upstairs. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, and we're also going to finish making our movie, which premieres next Sunday. Hint, hint.
Well, our reading this morning is also going to be about Rip Van Winkle, so y'all will have a very thorough view of Rip when we finish today. The reading this morning, it's an excerpt from the 1966 Ware Lecture that was delivered by Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr. And that was at the annual convention of the Unitarian Universalist Church called the General Assembly. That year it was held in Hollywood, Florida. The title of Dr. King's address, Don't Sleep Through the Revolution. Now, you have probably read a little bit about that story, and it was written by Washington Irving, entitled Rip Van Winkle. One thing that we usually remember about that story is that he slept 20 years. But there's another point in the story which is almost completely overlooked, according to Dr. King. It is the sign on the end of the little town on the Hudson from which Rip went up into the mountains for his long sleep. He went up, the sign had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. And when he looked at that picture of George Washington, he was amazed, he was completely lost, he knew not who he was. This incident reveals that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that he slept 20 years, but that he slept through a revolution. While he was peacefully snoring up in the mountains, a revolution was taking place in the world that would change the face of human history. Yet Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep. One of the great misfortunes of history is that all too many individuals and institutions find themselves in a great period of change and yet fail to achieve the new attitudes and outlooks that the new situation demands. There is nothing more tragic than to sleep through a revolution. And there can be no gainsaying of the fact that a social revolution is taking place in our world today. And this was 1966 when Dr. King spoke. We see it in other nations in the demise of colonialism. We see it in our own nation in the struggle against racial segregation and discrimination. And as we notice this struggle, we are aware of the fact that social revolution is taking place in our midst. Victor Hugo once said that there is nothing more powerful in all the world than an idea whose time has come. The idea whose time has come today is the idea of freedom and human dignity. And so all over the world, we see something of freedom explosion. And this reveals to us that we are in the midst of revolutionary times. An older order is passing away, and a new order is coming into being. The great question is, what do we do when we find ourselves in such a period?
An older order is passing away, and a new order is coming into being. The great question is, what do we do when we find ourselves in such a period? What do we do? The old order that was passing away when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. addressed the gathered body of the Unitarian Universalist Association in 1966 was an old order of outright, legally enshrined racial discrimination. It was an old order of failed arguments trying to establish physical, social, emotional, and moral superiority of one race over another. It was an old order of enshrined comfort within whites-only spaces that were explicitly created and celebrated as such. The new order that was coming into being did indeed address and turn over many of these old ways. Laws were enshrined protecting the voting rights of black citizens. Explicit laws of segregation and the nefarious Jim Crow laws were either removed from the books or they were replaced with laws that were more just. But I am sure that I do not need to remind you that this was not the end of the work. A small needful fact is that Eric Garner worked for some time for the Parks and Rec Horticultural Department, which means, perhaps, that with his very large hands, perhaps, in all likelihood, he gently put into the earth some plants which, most likely, some of them, in all likelihood, continue to grow, continue to do what such plants do, like house and feed small and necessary creatures, like being pleasant to touch and smell, like converting sunlight into food, like making it easier for us to breathe. This poem was written by Ross Gay in response to the choking death of Eric Garner in July of 2014, as perpetrated by the New York City police officers who found him selling loose cigarettes on a street corner in Staten Island. Certainly, this was a direct violation of tax laws of the city and state of New York. Certainly, it should not, nor should it ever have been, cause for a death sentence. Garner's caught-on-video plea, "I can't breathe," was part of the chorus that arose at that time within our society as it became more and more clear that there was need for more new order, that the old order, which had begun to pass away, had been stubborn. Laws had changed, but in too many instances, hearts had not. Habits had not. Debunked and incorrect knowledge had not. It was time for more unearthing. I like to think that Gay picked this metaphor, Garner's work with plants that support the living and breathing of so many other beings that continued on beyond his own untimely end, because Gay is himself a gardener. He has the deep and ingrained understanding that old earth must be turned over, must be aired out, must be allowed to, yes, breathe, before new fertile crops are able to take hold. In his Ware lecture, King also addressed what he perceived as what changes in the law could and could not do. And I'm returning to his words here. It may be true that morality cannot be legislated, but behavior can be regulated. It may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. The law cannot make a man love me, but it can restrain him from lynching me, and I think that's pretty important also. And while the law may not change the hearts of men, it does change the habits of men. And King shared that as a demonstration to the first myth that was stopping folks from taking change. There was a resistance to legislative action, and he called that the first myth that must be dispelled for people of goodwill to continue to effect positive change in the fight against racial hatred and discrimination. And then he said, a second myth that we must deal with is that of exaggerated progress. Certainly we have made progress in race relations. And I think we can all glory that things are better today than they were 10 years ago or even 3 years ago. We should be proud of the steps we've made to rid our nation of this great evil of racial segregation and discrimination. On the other hand, we must realize the plant of freedom is only a bud and not yet a flower. More gardening metaphors. More spaces for growth. more places where we need to get our hands dirty. If the plant of freedom was a bud in 1966, and if it is not in full flower today, which let me be very clear, it is not, then what has happened to stunt that growth? Was the earth not turned enough? Did we not get our hands dirty enough? Beloveds, I don't think we did. I think we have so much more to do. The great question is, what do we do when we find ourselves in such a period? To be clear, King did actually go on to answer this question that he posed in the lecture. The Where lecture itself is about an hour long, so of course we could not read the entire text this morning. But the text of it is available online, is readily found through a quick internet search for Martin Luther King Where Lecture 1966. If that's not enough, try tossing in a UUA for good measure. It is a wonderful speech, and though it is very rooted in its time, referring to specific legislation that was present in 1966, it is an important historical document in our faith tradition, and it's well worth your time to seek it out. But to shorten that, the summation of King's answer to what do we do is fourfold. First, we are challenged to instill within the people of our congregations a world perspective. He follows this with a tale of increasing globalization, noting, through our scientific genius, we have made of this world a neighborhood. And now, through our moral and ethical commitment, we must make it a brotherhood. We must live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools. Secondly, King suggests it is necessary for the church to reaffirm over and over again the essential immorality of racial segregation. It is not only sociologically untenable or politically unsound or merely economically unwise, it is morally wrong and sinful. Now, we heard a little bit about sin last week when we were gifted with the preaching presence of the Reverend Dr. David Jones. And I know that's not always a word that we hear in Unitarian Universalist spaces. And that is for a pretty good reason. The rejection of the doctrine of original sin is essential to our Universalist Christian roots. For a Universalist, humankind is born to goodness. However, King, in his speech, noted the observation of Protestant theologian Paul Tillich, who called sin separation. Separation from God, separation from our own ideals. And for my own Universalist approach to the idea of sin, I would also add the Greek word used throughout the Christian scriptures, hamartia, which is an archery term that literally means to fall short of the mark. Even a human being born essentially good isn't going to stay that way. None of us are perfect. We will all fall short of the mark. We have the free will and the opportunity to try many ways of being in the world, to measure them against what we value the most, and to select those that take us closer to the mark and reject those that leave us wanting. So whatever way you choose to consider King's words, his meaning is clear. There is an inherent wrongness in any moral order that claims the superiority of any race, of any group of human beings over any other group. And it is the obligation of the church to affirm this again and again. In fact, that's the third thing that King says we must do in partnership with addressing segregation. It is necessary to refute the idea that there are superior and inferior races. And the fourth way that King implored us to engage with this work nearly 60 years ago is this. The next thing that the church must do to remain awake through this revolution is to move out into the arena of social action. It is not enough for the church to work in the ideological realm and to clear up misguided ideas. To remain awake through this social revolution, the church must engage in strong action programs to get rid of the last vestiges of segregation and discrimination. This is it. This is faith in action. That which King called us to 59 years ago, and that which we still hear echoing in our churches and our community halls, where people of goodwill gather to place active, bold love at the center of our own actions in the world. To do more than to see wrong, but to name it. To do more than to name it, but to put ourselves in the way of those who would seek to harm others, if that is an action we feel safe enough taking. It is up to each of us to do the interior work, to consider our own risk tolerance, to decide what we are and are not able to do. And once we make that decision, which of course we may revisit again and again, but once we make a decision for ourselves of what we are willing to do to live love into our action in this world, then we have to do it. There's one last note that I'm going to share from King's lecture that I think is relevant today. January 19th, 2025. Today. Because I know there are many of us thinking that these particular problems are not the ones that are top of mind for those of us living here in the United States today, January 19th, 2025. The revolution that was happening in 1966 was different in so many ways. And the key difference was that the sentiments expressed and held dear by Dr. King, by the UUA, by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, by the American Friends Service Committee, and all those partner organizations, they kind of all wound up being on what we would now call the right side of history. Those laws got passed. The world did change significantly. It was a great triumph of the human desire for justice, and its import should not be diminished. We would not be where we are now if we had not gone through what we did then. You, like me, may share a feeling that we're now kind of on the outside of a revolution that is happening, that we feel like we are on the side of losing power. We tried to make changes, and we feel an overwhelming sense of rejection and loss in the current political climate. But remember that all the things that feel foregone to us in 2025 were very real, live, and in no way certain in 1966. Revolutions always start on the margins with people who are tired of being pushed to them. And that tiredness is actually something King also called out in his speech. And in fact, he called for more of it. He called it divine discontent. When we see the status quo as unjust, we may feel tired, we may feel angry, but that tiredness and that anger are markers that are pointing us to the injustice, to the change that must happen. Not that you shouldn't rest, but that you should use your tiredness as a sign. Near the end of his speech, King said this: "But I must say to you this evening, my friends, there are some things in our nation and in our world to which I am proud to be maladjusted. And I call upon you to be maladjusted, and all people of goodwill to be maladjusted to these things until the good society is realized. I never intend to adjust myself to segregation and discrimination. I never intend to become adjusted to religious bigotry. I never intend to adjust myself to economic traditions that will take necessities from the many to give luxuries to the few, and leave millions of people perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of prosperity. I must honestly say, however much criticism it brings, that I never intend to adjust myself to the madness of militarism and to the self-defeating effects of physical violence. We are here at the time of another great unearthing. We must never adjust ourselves to rest easy, breathing the air that's created and made clear by plants set in the ground by those whom injustice has taken from the world too soon. We know there are incarcerated people putting out those fires in California. People are breathing because of what they're giving up. We must never adjust ourselves to the hatred and violence and separation and the conditions of racial injustice, economic injustice, climate crisis, transphobia and homophobia, and the hateful acts of those whose only aim and goal is power over others. We must center love in our actions and consider not what the history books will ultimately say about this moment, but about how we will live full human lives, striving for the goodness our Universalist heritage assures us that we were born to. We must look inside ourselves to understand where our perceived freedom comes from, and then look to the larger world and the human family to know that deep down, as Fannie Lou Hamer said, none of us are free until all of us are free. We are called to love that world into being. And when we fall short of the mark, and we will, we are called to pick ourselves up and try again. We love that world into being by entering into true community with those whose values we share and work toward, and by being ready to love the hell out of this world. May our path to freedom be steady, and along the way may it fill us with joy. So may it be. Thank you. I think he even references that scripture in the speech too. It's a good speech, y'all. Look it up. We come now to that time in our service each week when we invite you into generosity. This loving church and this community focused on active and bold love only succeeds with generous support of those who align with us and the work we do. The ushers will now gratefully collect the offering.
And it sings a song sweet.
Thank you for your generosity.
Good morning. My name is Sally Garber, and it's my honor to represent the Caring Committee this morning. If you have a joy or concern, please take the time to let us know. You can do that by either calling a member of the Caring Committee or calling the church office, or you can write it in the Lifelines book, which you saw me pick up as I came up here this morning. Let me share a couple things with you this morning. Rosalie Sutherland's son and daughter-in-law had to evacuate because of the raging fires around Altindo where they live. Luckily, they're staying with a friend and believe that their home is safe, but they're not allowed to return yet. Also, thanks to Bob Egbert for his work cleaning the ice from the rear drive. That was a major blessing to everybody. Betsy Biesenbach is having surgery to test a device that may relieve her chronic pain. If it works, it'll be permanently installed later. So please keep Betsy in your thoughts and prayers. If you have a joy or concern that you're holding in your heart, you're welcome to come forward during the meditation and light a candle of that. Thank you.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light.
prayers be heard, and our hearts be restored.
Thank you, Sally. We already prayed for Rosalie's son and daughter-in-law and everybody in Altadena and Pacific Palisades, but I'm going to light another one for everybody affected by the wildfires in California. I'm going to light a candle for our nation as it embarks on a new chapter. And as I do every week, I will light a last candle for all of those who are joining us online who are not here physically to place one. Your prayers are as much a part of this community as all of those gathered here. I invite you now into a time for prayer, reflection, and meditation. If you settle yourself comfortably in your seat, close your eyes. If that's comfortable for you, soften your gaze. A wise woman once said, "God is change." Change moves in the heart, in the mind, in the spirit, in ways we cannot control. Like a blazing fire, change will come into our lives, welcome or unwelcome, bidden or unbidden. It can bring with it heavy burdens of sorrow, as well as uplift us with waves of joy. And no matter what the larger world is feeling, we also know your own internal sense of change, your sense of what is up and down, what is right and wrong, is challenged day to day. Sometimes affirmed, sometimes felt and rendered quite shaky. There is no perfect. Free yourself from that idea. There is only centering love, asking yourself each moment what the most loving thing to do is in this situation. That can be love for yourself, love for your neighbor, love for that which is larger than us all. Those are all intertwined. Look to them in times of change. The words from 60 years ago, from 360 years ago, are with us still, and we must heed the wisdom of the past, ground ourselves in the present, and prepare ourselves for the future, knowing still that change will wash over us like a wave. Without change, the plant that is set into the earth does not grow. The seed never blossoms. That bud of freedom never becomes full flower. So we welcome change, even when it feels scary, even when it feels hard. We know that joy comes also on the winds of change. So may it be.
And now, as we draw close to the end of our time together in worship this week, we turn our attention to our own community and to their joys and concerns, and we prepare to engage in the world in the week ahead. We'll begin with a few announcements. Just a reminder for everyone that we are collecting non-perishable food items for Soup for Seniors. That's operated by the League of Older Americans. That's going to be going on until February 2nd. There is a flyer in the lobby that you can get more details. We had a wonderful turnout last week for U and UU class. If you wanted to attend but were unable to do so, please email RevGen at revgen@uuroanoke.org, and she will give you the link for the recording. We're also going to be taking sign-ups soon for our UU immersion class. That will be on Saturday, February 22nd. If you weren't in attendance last Sunday and are interested in attending again, please email Rev Jen. We need everyone who plans to attend to sign up so we can have the count for lunch and also any child care issues. Speaking of sign-ups, if you would like to attend Rev Jen's celebration for full fellowship, that's going to be on Friday, January 31st. There's a sign-up sheet in the lobby. Okay, and Leah will, if you want to raise your hand, Leah will have a sheet for people to sign up with. This is a very big step in the UU ministry, so we're all excited to support Rev Jen on this. There's also a link in our weekly newsletter. And tomorrow, as all of us know, is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and the UUCR office will be closed. You're invited to join the worship celebration of Dr. King's life and legacy. That's being held by Roanoke Justice Ministries at Hill Street Baptist Church. That's 111 Madison Avenue Northwest. It's going to be at 7 o'clock. It's going to be cold tomorrow, as we all are very aware, but at least we didn't get our snow today. You have the option of watching the service from the comfort of your home. Hill Street Baptist has both a Facebook page and a YouTube channel. More announcements can be found in our weekly newsletter. If you're not receiving the newsletter, be sure and contact admin@uuroanoke.org to get on the distribution list for that.
Thank you, Teresa. And while you are here, I will ask you to, board minute. Golly, I forget this every... Falling short of the mark here, y'all. You're right, there's a board minute. I didn't even put it in the dang script. And I think we all know the script is...
We were all at the board meeting.
We were literally, all three of us were at this board meeting. We're doing great. No, that was the best, that was the shortest board meeting we've ever had.
Good morning. Your board met last Tuesday evening, and I can report that we did discuss our ongoing plans for Rev Jen's fellowship celebration, and I'm collecting RSVPs. If you have not signed up yet on our Sign Up Genius or our sign-up sheet, I encourage you to please do so by January 26th so we can get the catering numbers put together. The minister's discretionary fund policy was approved. We discussed inclement weather policy and snow removal procedures, as we've now have winter here for the first time in years. And we do have a snow plowing service that we have retained, and they will be coming to clean and prepare the surfaces when and if it snows on an automatic schedule. So church parking lot will be cleared. And we are also going to announce any closures on WDBJ on Sunday mornings. If the church does need to be closed, Rev Jen will make that decision, or her delegate, probably the president of the board, Gordon. And that will be done by 6 a.m., so you should be able to get a good warning as to if the church will be closed. And we also reviewed recommendations from our safety committee, and we identified steps to begin fire and emergency preparedness and safety education for the congregation that will be coming in the near future. And of course, you will be hearing some more about that. We're also going to pursue, as a board, the community emergency response involvement after we've done some basic in-house training with all of our congregants. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Leah, for not forgetting the important thing that I forgot. And now I will ask Teresa to extinguish our chalice as we join in with Unitarian Universalist churches and congregations across the nation and the world, in knowing that though the flame of the chalice here in this room may be extinguished, the light of our faith burns in our hearts.
Our closing song is Draw the Circle Wide. And so we have a sort of every once in a while tradition of singing this song in a ring. Like we make a ring. And so we'll start it off. And then you can just move, if you can, to the edges. And if you can't, that's fine. But the words will be there for you. And see.
And after all that, the benediction is draw the circle wide, move in peace, go with change in your hearts. So maybe. Woo! I was like, are we allowed to drop hands and start clapping? Oh, good, we are. Okay. It's not the same if you don't clap. It's not the same if you don't clap. And then we all had to get on the right part to clap. Thank you. Yes, that's great. Turn my microphone off.
We're so cool. Where are they? I couldn't see them. I was behind.
Yeah, yep, upstairs. 12:30-ish, whenever I can get up there. Whatever.